Hey, today we're talking about how to blast past writer's block in just minutes. Writer's block is something that can strike all of us at one point or another, no matter how many ideas you have or how experienced a writer you are. The good news is that there are a number of simple techniques that you can use to get past it quickly and easily. So let's take a look at some of my favorite techniques now. Let's go. Tip number 1 for getting past writer's block is to entertain yourself while you write. Try to be your own entertainer. Try having fun. Write what entertains you, not some imaginary reader from the future or the internal voice of your sophomore year English professor. If you're stuck, how about this? Set aside your 900-page novel you've been working on, or your thesis, or your blog post, whatever it is that's giving you trouble. What do you think sounds really fun to write right now? Maybe it's a poem, and you're not a poet, but who cares? Maybe it's a McSweeney's List, and you think, oh, but I'm not funny. Well, maybe you are today. Or that story about the time you got stuck in the bathroom or were on an airplane with Britney Spears. Whatever it is, what sounds fun for you to write right now? Because when we're having trouble writing and we have writer's block, instead of trying to go from 0 to 60, like to go from being stuck to suddenly, freely and happily writing chapter 17 of your epic saga, let's try to go from 0 to 3, okay, to writing at all. And the way we're going to get ourselves to writing at all and having a good time doing it is to rediscover the pleasure of it and see where that leads. And that means writing whatever you feel like writing, no matter if it's ever going to get published or not. And hey, you might surprise yourself. It might be the best thing you've ever written. Tip number 2 is to try a writing prompt. And I'm not really talking about this kind of writing prompts that make you feel like you're back in the 7th grade. Like someone drops a mystery box on your front doorstep. What's in it? I mean more like invest some time in thinking of prompts that are interesting to you and give you the freedom to just write whatever comes to mind. I even like to use them to generate passages for whatever project I'm currently working on. What you write in response to a writing prompt doesn't have to be something you throw away or a mere exercise. One that I really love is asking myself, what secret is this character keeping? What are they doing to keep it? What are they afraid will happen if it gets out? And then you can even expand on that. Do other characters know about this secret? What do they think of it? I find that prompts around secrets generate some of my favorite writing a lot of the time. But whether it's a prompt about a secret or not, you can come up with some of your own writing prompts. One of my writers told me this week that she decided she was going to write a list of interview questions for each of her characters, the kind of things that someone might ask on a first date. And she found it a really fun exercise. I want to be clear that that's not something you have to do. I don't think you need to interview your characters before you start writing a novel. But I do think it can be a really good way of kicking yourself out of writer's block. Tip number 3 is to tweak your surrounding environment. Question for you. Do you like your writing space? Do you like where you sit when you're writing? You should enjoy your writing space. And it's not just about the space. And in the same way that adjusting one piece of furniture can have a rippling effect, kind of causing you to re-envision an entire room, a simple physical change in your writing practice can jostle you out of writer's block. So I keep a stack of different color pens next to me, and I swap them out whenever I feel like it, even if it's mid-sentence. Sometimes I can get out of a blockage just by switching from pink to blue. I get a fresh idea. So change it up. Whether it's your space and you need to find a fresher space that makes you feel good, or it's just getting some colorful pens, or it's getting a new notebook, sometimes a simple physical change in your surroundings can make a difference in how you're approaching your writing. Tip number 4 is going to get psychological. Figure out the deeper fear that's paralyzing you. What's the greatest enemy of a writer? In one word, resistance. Resistance is the inevitable pushback from the universe whenever we try to create something new. And the term was coined by the writer Stephen Pressfield in his really great little book called The War of Art. If you haven't read it, I recommend checking it out. You can probably read it in just an hour or two. But the idea is that whenever you try to create something new, you're going to face resistance. The good thing about this is that resistance is 100% in our heads, which means we can overcome it with the right kind of mindset shifts. So if you can't write, there's probably something else subconsciously stopping you. So what is it? Ask yourself, maybe journal a bit about it. Is it fear that your writing is not good enough? Is it fear that your writing will hurt your friends and family? Say, if you're writing from experience or basing your story on real things that have happened. Is it fear that your writing won't match the vision you have in your head, that you'll let yourself down? Whatever it is, once you give a name to what's troubling you, it becomes so much easier to tackle it. In fact, sometimes once you give a name to what's troubling you, it just sort of loses its power. I still feel resistance, and I've published 3 novels already. So it's not the kind of thing that's going to go away with experience or with a book deal. It's also not weak to doubt yourself. It's human. The difference between you and the person who will never write their book, though, is taking the steps to understand and integrate those fears and not let them stop you from actually writing. Point number 5 is to write like you talk. Several times over the years, people have told me that I write like I talk. And for a long time, I didn't know whether that was a compliment or not. Is that a good thing, I wonder? Or am I supposed to be writing like Shakespeare and not how I talk? I truly didn't know. But over time, working with other writers and teaching other writers, I've come to believe that it's a good thing, because a lot of writers put too much pressure on themselves to sound literary. And sometimes it can even be hard to follow a sentence or figure out what's happening in a scene because someone has sort of tried so hard to be kind of artful, and it ends up being wordy or flowery or actually difficult to follow. And listen, I'm not immune. I've caught myself doing it. Ironically, I think this phenomenon of weighing down a paragraph with that necessary evil of words can happen when we're so focused on creating beautiful prose that the prose stops reading like natural speech. It doesn't sound like the way people talk. Okay, on the other hand, I've worked with people who assure me that they are not writers. They're like, I am not a writer. I've never written. And then when I read what they've just written, I can't put it down. It's really good. By good, I mean, I can't put it down. I'm engaged in it. I want to keep reading. I want to turn the pages. And almost invariably, what these people are doing that's so effective is they're writing like they speak. Sometimes the solution to curing writer's block and moving ahead is simply to tell the story. Don't suss it up. Don't tease it out and drown it in hairspray. Just tell it like you're telling it to a friend. Make it as easy as possible for yourself, and the words might start flowing. How about you? Are you feeling resistance in your writing life right now? See if you can name it. Share in the comments what is holding you back from writing right now. Okay, so maybe that'll help you keep going. Oh, and please like and subscribe to my channel. This channel is all about helping you write the best possible book that you can, and I share loads of tips and tricks for getting there and becoming a published author. So like and subscribe, and you won't regret it. Let's get back to the video. Tip number 6 for pushing past writer's block is to do something else. And no, I don't mean give up on your dream. What I mean is just giving yourself the time to do something else. Take a walk, do your laundry, knit a sweater, free yourself up from the pressure of writing. Have you ever gotten a brilliant idea for your story in the shower? I certainly have, and that's what I'm talking about. When you are consciously engaged with another task, you free your subconscious up to do some tinkering behind the scenes, and that can sometimes be how we stumble on these aha moments. You may know the story of Isaac Newton having the concept of gravity pop into his head after watching an apple fall from a tree. Well, we can't be 100% sure if that actually happened, but I bet that it did, because it actually makes sense. Newton gave his conscious brain the freedom to do something else, sitting under a tree, watching the world around him, and that primed him to be receptive to a new idea when it did come to him. Last but not least, tip number 7 is to embrace the lesser evil. And this may sound like a rehash of the resistance point I mentioned earlier, but I'm repeating it because recognizing the fear that your book will not be exactly what you imagined is a huge game changer. So I want to be honest with you about something. The book you write is going to be a disappointment in some ways. It always is for me. It always is. I am literally always disappointed in every book I write, a little bit. But I know that's just part of the process because the vision in anyone's head is perfect. Our imaginations don't imagine the flaws, the humanity of it. And so when it becomes a real thing in the world, it's not going to be as perfect as that was because that didn't even exist. Here's the thing. The disappointment of having written something that was better in your head is still better than the book that you have in your head burning inside you and gnawing at you forever. When I compare those two feelings of the unwritten draft that I'm dying to write that I haven't written and the slight feeling of disappointment that this book isn't as perfect it was in my head, I would much rather have the latter. I much prefer to act as opposed to feeling like impotent and paralyzed. When I compare those two feelings, there's no question which I prefer. I prefer to disappoint myself. I prefer to have something. I prefer to act as opposed to feeling impotent and paralyzed. The slight disappointment of having written something that was better in my head is still better. It's a better feeling than the emotional weight of an unwritten book burning inside me. Speaking of a book burning inside you, you'd love to maybe write your book, but you don't know how to find the time, or you haven't written a creative word in years. Or you're the opposite. Maybe you have an MFA in creative writing, but it sucked all the fun out of it and now you're stuck. Well, as a 3-time published novelist and writing coach, I've put together a free training for you on how to write your dream book while holding down your full-time job. And in this training, I teach you the exact process I use to write my books. All you have to do to get it is click below and apply to my program, the Book Incubator. The application is just 2 questions. You can do it in under 5 minutes, and there's no obligation to enroll, but if you're admitted, I'll send you this free training, which you can watch right away. It's really good. I promise it'll be worth your time. So click below and get it right now.